In this video, I'm going to rank all of the common American hardwoods in 4 categories so you can decide what's right for you. 1. Durability. 2. Cost. 3. How much do they move when subjected to moisture? And 4. How versatile are they? AKA, do they look good stained versus natural, etc. Starting out with walnut trees make some of the most valuable lumber in the world. When I used to work in logging, it was not uncommon for a really nice, big, and straight walnut tree to be worth upwards of 15 grand. It's a beautiful, rich, dark wood. The trees can be found all over the world, but the black walnut that you're used to seeing is found mostly in the eastern United States. It has long been considered a luxury wood that only the wealthy can afford. Walnut floors make a statement. 1. Durability. Walnut wood is generally a bit darker than other types of wood, and because of that, it's going to scratch and it's going to dent more easily. It also tends to fade out with the sun much worse than other hardwoods. And that's very common for most darker woods, including cherry, as well as all of your foreign woods. To slow that process down, we usually use a water-based finish. Oil-based finishes speed that process up and make the fading considerably worse. Despite this fading issue, one of the bright sides is it is very resistant against rot, which may not be that practical because the inside of your house is hopefully dry anyways. For durability, we will give walnut a 3 out of 5. 2. Cost. I said in the beginning that walnut flooring is a statement piece. It's luxurious and it's beautiful, but it is not cheap. For narrow widths of flooring, plan to pay at least $6, if not more, per square foot. And honestly, that's less than what we're used to paying from a quality mill. It is not uncommon for us to pay upwards of $10 to $12 per square foot just for some narrow plank walnut. Wide plank walnut is extremely expensive. Plan to pay a lot more. I'm not even going to try to ballpark it for you. And also keep in mind that walnut is pretty much made to order. Most of your distributors are not going to have it in stock because most people cannot afford it. For cost, we're going to give walnut a 2 out of 5. 3. Stainability / versatility. Walnut is a deep, rich brown color, and no matter what you do to it, it's going to remain that deep brown color. It's not meant to be stained. It's practically considered a sin to stain walnut. It is not versatile when it comes to how it looks. For versatility, we'll give walnut a 1 out of 5. 4. Movement volatility. Walnut is fairly stable. It moves an average amount compared to a standard red oak floor. For movement volatility, we'll give walnut a 4 out of 5. That brings us to an average of 2.5 out of 5. Now, I know that sounds bad, but this is a scale of practicality. We actually love walnut and are huge fans of it. It's just not very practical. It's a statement piece, it's luxurious, and if you can afford it, get it. If you're thinking early 2000s, golden oak, matching cabinets, and matching flooring, you're thinking about red oak. It was extremely popular in the early 2000s, and most builder grade homes had it. Red oak is one of the most common types of hardwood trees throughout the US. It's found all across the eastern United States. The trees in the north are much lighter and they have a whole lot less pink inside of them. The trees in the south are much redder and darker and tend to have more variation in the grain. Where we operate in southwest Michigan and northwest Indiana, it is the #1 most common type of flooring. 1. Durability. Red oak is very durable. It is slightly softer than white oak, but for all practical purposes, it is just as tough. However, it does not have the tannins that white oak have. That means you don't need to worry about the wood reacting with the water-based finish and leaving big yellow brownish streaks in the floor. For durability, we'll give red oak a 4 out of 5. 2. Cost of red oak. Red oak is pretty much the cheapest hardwood there is. That's for several reasons. 1. It's pretty much the most common type of hardwood in the United States. When I was working as a logger, we cut down more red oaks than anything else. The second reason is that the popularity of it has gone down. While we still put a lot of it in on additions, most of our new installations are going to be a white oak instead of a red oak. People just don't love that pink reddish color anymore. Narrow widths can be found easily for $3 to $4 a square foot, even from a high quality mill like Shioga. The wider planks are going to be a little bit more generally, but not a ton. And if you really want to go budget, you can get a number 2 red oak for as cheap as $2 per square foot. It's a great floor for a rental property. For cost, full 5 out of 5. 3, stainability, versatility. Red oak is pretty much the easiest type of floor to stain. Now, that doesn't mean it's easy. You still need skill to do it. But compared to maple or hickory, it is easy. You can stain it any color you want. All the colors will take to it, but remember, it is red oak, and that's for a reason. No matter what you do to it, it will always be a little bit red. If you're going to stain it a brown or any classic color, that's not a big deal. But if you want to go with some modern tones, for example, the beachy white look that's really in style right now, you can have some reddish pinkish tones poking through, and we find that people generally don't like that. That is why white oak has grown in popularity over the last few years. For stainability, versatility, we're going to have to give it a 3 out of 5 because it is very stainable, but those reddish tones really kill some of the popular looks. 4, movement, volatility. Red oak is essentially the standard hardwood. We pretty much compare everything to it. Its movement when subjected to moisture is pretty average. It moves less than hickory, but significantly more than pine. In red oak, you're safe to go solid up to about 6 inches with no problems. For movement / volatility, we'll give red oak a 4 out of 5. And that brings us to a total average of 4 out of 5. It's a great floor, but because of those reddish, pinkish tones, we're pretty much always going to recommend that you go with the white oak. But if you like those red tones, more power to you. White oak is one of the most popular types of flooring in the United States. Over the last few years, we've got all sorts of requests for people to try to make their red oak or their pine or whatever look like white oak. It is grown all over the eastern United States and Europe, but depending on where it's grown, it can look significantly different. You may have heard of oaks like European oak or French oak. This is also white oak. It's just sawn in a manner called live sawn. But that's a topic that deserves its own video. 1, durability. White oak is harder than red oak, but softer than maple. It's fairly resistant to scratch, and it's also quite resistant to rot. It has considerable levels of tannins in it. Now, there are 2 things you need to know about the tannins in white oak. 1, they help prevent rot. So that's a real positive if you're using this on a deck or something that's going to get a lot of moisture. 2, the tannins in the white oak can react with water-based finishes, causing large brownish yellow streaking in your floor. Keep this in mind if you want a light-colored oak floor. For durability, we will give oak a 4 out of 5. 2, cost of oak. Narrow widths of white oak can usually be found for $4 to $5 per square foot, with the wider planks usually going for 5, 6, 7, and up. That's generally a bit more than your average hardwood flooring, but not by a ton. For cost, we will give oak a 4 out of 5. 3, stainability / versatility. If you're looking for the most versatile and timeless hardwood floor of all time, look no further. It's probably white oak. It's beautiful in its natural state, but it also stains just as well as red oak. You can stain it dark, light, red, whatever you want. It's considerably easier to stain than hardwoods like maple or hickory. For stainability, versatility, we're going to have to give white oak the full 5 out of 5. 4, movement / volatility. White oak moves a very standard amount. It's going to be very similar to red oak in how much it moves, less than a hickory or a maple, but more than a pine. You're probably pretty safe to go with a solid all the way up to about 6 inches, but we always recommend engineered over 4. For movement and volatility, that gives white oak a 4 out of 5. That brings us to an average of 4.25 out of 5. No hardwood is perfect in all categories, but white oak is about as close as you can get to it. If you're unsure of what type of hardwood floor to get, white oak is a very safe option because you can go pretty much any direction with it. Pine trees grow all over the entire northern hemisphere of the world. When people say pine, generally they're referring to all trees that have needles instead of leaves. But in reality, there are 115 species of pine. Most of our houses are made out of it. But is it a good wood floor? In the USA, we see mostly yellow pine, heart pine, Douglas fir, and the occasional white pine used as flooring. And most people can't tell them apart, so for the sake of this video, we're just going to lump them all together. In the Midwest where we operate, we see the most pine used in houses built before World War II. It often acts as both the finished hardwood surface and the subfloor. That means that it's nailed directly to the joists underneath. Now, that may sound kind of dangerous, but it's not. I can guarantee you 3/4 inches thick of flooring is enough to hold up the weight of you and whatever else you have in your house. 1, durability. Pine is pretty much the least durable type of flooring there is. It scratches and dents so easily. When we go to refinish pine projects, it's very common for there to be damage that is so deep in the floor that we can't sand it out. Pine has more soft grain than about any other type of wood flooring, and that causes it to break down even faster. However, some pines do hold up much better than others. Vertical grain Douglas fir is quite tough. Yellow pine and heart pine do okay, and white pine is so soft that practically looking at it leaves scratch marks in it. You may be wondering why our houses are all framed out of it if it's so weak. It is susceptible to dents and scratches, but it actually has quite high tensile strength. That's what's important for building a house. Also, pine trees naturally grow much straighter, and there are much more of them in the world. For durability, we're going to have to give pine a 1 out of 5. 2, cost. You would think with pine being so common throughout the world that it would be really cheap, but it's not. And that's because pine flooring is just so uncommon now that it's kind of hard to get your hands on. There are not many mills making it. You can expect to pay $5 a square foot for even narrow width pine, and if you want to go with a wider plank pine, expect to pay well over that. For cost, we're going to give pine a 2 out of 5. 3, stainability / versatility. Pine is another type of wood that is rather difficult to stain. It must always be water popped before the stain is applied, or it's just going to look terrible. But even if you've water popped it and the craftsmanship is superb, it oftentimes still takes on a blotchy appearance. It's just the nature of the wood, and nothing can be done about this. Pine floors have a very rustic look to them in both natural form and in stained form. If you love the cabin-like rustic feel, pine may really catch your eye. We generally recommend that you don't stain your pine because of 2 reasons. 1, it scratches so easily that oftentimes you're going to expose raw wood with the scratch and it's going to be really prominent. 2, the blotchy appearance can be a turn-off to some people. For stainability, versatility, we'll give pine a 3 out of 5. 4, movement / volatility. This is one spot where pine actually does shine. It's very possible to have a severe flood on a pine floor and for the damage to not be that severe. It may still slightly cup, but generally it's going to dry back down pretty well, and a simple refinish can fix your problem. This is because pine simply does not expand and contract nearly as much as other hardwoods when exposed to moisture. Pine is pretty much the only type of flooring that you can go with a wide plank in solid without having to worry. For movement / volatility, we'll give pine a 5 out of 5. That brings us to an average of 2.75 out of 5. As you can see, we are not huge fans of pine here. We think it has a cool rustic look, and if that's really what you're going for and you're willing to sacrifice everything else, you do you. If you are dead set on getting pine, I would recommend sticking with a hard pine or a vertical grain Douglas fir. Hickory trees have a shaggy bark, and they can be found across the eastern United States, Canada, and China. You're probably more familiar with the taste of hickory than the look of hickory. I want you to think about smoked meats, maybe a jerky, or some Texas barbecue sauce. Hickory is a common type of flooring in the United States, but it's also used in a lot of hand tools. If you have ever used a hammer or a mallet or an axe that has a wooden handle, it was probably a hickory handle. That's because it is so tough, so resistant to damage. That brings us to durability. It is incredibly resistant to scratching, gouging, and dents, and it has virtually no soft grain in it. So Hickory does not break down easily whatsoever. For durability, we gotta give hickory a full 5 out of 5. 2, cost of hickory. Hickory is about as cheap as any hardwood you could hope to buy. The narrow widths can be found for just over $3 a square foot, and even the wider planks up to like 8-inch you can find for just over $5 a square foot. That's pretty cheap. It's even cheaper than red oak, and red oak is known for being kind of the budget hardwood. For price, hickory definitely gets a full 5 out of 5. 3, stainability/versatility. Hickory is another type of hardwood that is quite difficult to stain. It's so hard and the pores are so tiny that the stain has nowhere to absorb. So someone really has to know what they're doing when it comes time to stain hickory. If it's sanded, water popped, and stained correctly, it takes stain as beautifully as oak. But you've got to know what you're doing to make it look like that. In its natural state, it can have a quite busy and rustic look, especially in the narrow planks. Its color is just all over the place. Part of it's white like maple, and part of it's dark like walnut. When you get into wide plank hickory, the busyness starts to go away, especially if you're going with a higher end mill that's going to hand sort every piece. They truly have some drop dead gorgeous hickory floors. But if you're going to go that route, plan on $12 or more a square foot. It's going to be very expensive. Due to hickory's busyness in its natural state and how hard it is to stain, we're going to give hickory a 3 out of 5 on stainability and versatility. 4, movement/volatility. If you want hickory floors, you either need to go with narrow widths and solid, or you need to plan to pay the extra money for engineered in the wider widths. I would say anything 4 inches and over should be engineered with hickory. At Lumberjack Flooring, we will not even accept a solid hickory install over 4 inches. That's because hickory is about the most volatile hardwood when it comes to moisture. It shrinks and expands at a rate significantly higher than other hardwoods. That means if you ever have a flood or anything like that, expect to replace your floor. Other hardwoods like oak, they might expand and then dry out, go back into place, and you can get away with the refinish. Not hickory. Hickory's going to move so violently, it's going to pull the nails out, and you're going to be looking at completely replacing things. For volatility/movement, we're going to have to give hickory a 1 out of 5. That brings us to an average of 3.5 out of 5 when you tally it up. If you really want a hardwood that is extremely resistant to impact and scratch, and you don't mind that busy rustic look, hickory could be a really good option for you. If you want to go wider plank, plan to fork over the big bucks for a nice engineered from a nice mill, or else you will have movement problems. Maple is found in both hard and soft species throughout the northeastern United States and Canada. Think maple syrup. But that maple syrup comes from soft maples, not hard maples. Hard maples are what are used for your floors. Now, if you think you don't know what maple flooring looks like, think again. You've seen hundreds of them. I want you to think basketball courts, racquetball courts, yoga rooms. It's in pretty much all of them, and that's because it is so durable. Maple has virtually no soft grain. The soft grain is the part of the wood that breaks down fastest in most hardwood floors, causing them to need a refinish sooner. For durability, we would have to give maple a full 5 out of 5. 2, cost of maple. Maple is relatively affordable compared to a lot of hardwoods. You can generally find it in your standard widths for between $3 and $5 per square foot. For cost, we'll have to give them a 4 out of 5. 3, how well can you stain maple / how versatile is it? Maple is extremely hard to stain, and it's probably not a great DIY to try yourself. Even for pros, it's difficult. So if you're going to hire one, I would talk to them specifically about their experience with maple refinishing, specifically the staining process. Ask to see some photos and see if the work is up to your liking. Because maple is so hard, it doesn't absorb the stain well, so the process to get that stain to absorb is more complex and it's much easier to mess it up. When you do stain it, even a good job has almost a blotchy, three-dimensional look to it. Some people like this look, but others hate it. In its natural form, it has a very pale look to it. It generally has not been that popular in homes, but over the past few years, there's been a big rise in these pale, whitish modern floors. It's kind of a Nordic look. We have seen wide plank maple rise in popularity over the last few years. To achieve this Nordic look, it has to be finished with either a raw product or with a whitish pastel color that gives it a very light, soft look. If you were to just finish maple with natural clear colors, it's going to yellow out considerably worse than other types of flooring. For versatility / sustainability, we're going to give maple a 3 out of 5. 4, how much does it move throughout the seasons? This can be difficult to quantify, but after you've worked with hundreds of different floors, you start to get an idea of what species of flooring has the big gaps and what doesn't. I'm going to tell you maple's gaps are larger than that of, for example, oak. That's because maple is more volatile. It expands and contracts more over the board width than your average species. So if you want maple and you're going to get it in a wider plank option, let's say 4 inches or wider, you're going to want to go with an engineered floor. For seasonal movement / volatility, we'll give maple a 3 out of 5. Maple is a great flooring choice if you're looking for extreme durability or maybe a light Nordic look. But if those are not top of your list, I would recommend you go with another type of flooring. Thanks for watching this video, and if you liked it, I just did one on engineered versus solid right up here. Check it out.